A map was not always a sheet. It was stone, sand, a finger moving across the ground. Pause. A map began with a line. Before ink, before parchment, before careful measurements, there was only a surface and a gesture. A hand moved across dust, and the world became slightly less unknown. Imagine the earth before it was divided. No borders, no names, no symbols, only land stretching outward, mountains rising without labels, rivers flowing without direction marks. And somewhere in that openness, a person kneels. They press a finger into the soil. They draw a line. The line is simple. It does not explain. It does not measure. It does not promise accuracy. It only suggests, here is the river. Here is the path. Here is the place we return to. The earliest maps were temporary. Wind erased them. Rain softened them. Footsteps crossed them. Nothing lasted. And yet the act of drawing remained. Because the map was never the material. It was the intention. Stone came next, a harder surface. A surface that resisted the wind. Lines carved instead of traced. Slow marks. Permanent marks. A river etched into rock does not wash away. It stays. On stone, the world felt heavier. Mountains were scratched into place. Paths were chipped into being. The act required effort, time, pressure, repetition. Each line meant something. Nothing was casual. These maps did not try to show everything. They showed what mattered: water, shelter, direction. The map was not a portrait of the world. It was a memory of survival. Sand, however, was softer. Sand allowed correction. If the line was wrong, it could be smoothed away. The finger could begin again. There was freedom in sand. The world could be redrawn as often as needed. A circle drawn in sand might mean a camp. A curved line might mean a river bend. Dots could mean trees. Everything was reduced to shape. Simple, quiet, enough. The earliest map makers did not seek perfection. They sought orientation. Where am I? Where is water? Where does the sun rise? The questions were small. The answers were lines. Even before tools, the body itself became the instrument. Hands shaped the world into meaning. A stick replaced a finger. A sharper edge made clearer lines. The map slowly grew more deliberate. Yet even then, the map was not separate from the land. It existed on the land. It borrowed the ground to explain the ground. There was no distance between the drawing and what it described. The act of drawing a map required stillness. To draw, one had to stop moving. To stop moving was to observe. Observation created memory. Memory created lines. Lines created maps. There is something quiet about that first line. It does not demand attention. It does not glow. It does not speak. It simply divides space into before and after. Before the line, everything is undifferentiated. After the line, there is direction. There is meaning. There is a path. Imagine night falling over open land. No lights, no screens. Only stars overhead. Someone kneels again. They trace the direction of a river. They mark where the sun disappears behind a ridge. The map is drawn under the sky. The earliest maps were not owned. They belonged to everyone who understood them. A line was shared knowledge. A mark in sand was instruction. It said, this way. Over time, the marks grew more confident. Stone walls carried carvings. Cave surfaces held outlines of nearby hills. The world was translated into symbols that could endure. Still simple, still quiet. Even without paper, the map already had its purpose. It guided, it reassured, it reduced uncertainty, it made the unknown smaller. A map before paper was not delicate, it was rough. Edges were uneven, lines were imperfect. But imperfection did not weaken it. It made it human. Every early map was limited. It showed only what was seen. Beyond that edge, there was silence, and silence was accepted. There was no need to fill it yet. The first line drawn in dust did not try to capture the whole earth. It captured a memory. A route walked, a river crossed, a hill climbed. The map was not about the world. It was about experience. Slowly, the idea settled. The world could be reduced. It could be carried, even if only in memory, even if only as a mark on the ground. Before paper, before ink, before careful measurements and coordinates, the map was already alive. It existed in gestures, in carved stone, in lines that the wind would soon erase. And yet, even when the sand was smoothed, even when the rain washed everything clean, the knowledge remained. The line lived on in memory, because the map was never truly the surface. It was the act of tracing space, the quiet decision to turn land into meaning. A map began with a line, a single line, drawn by hand, in sand, on stone, under the open sky. And that was enough. Rough outlines, a river, a mountain, a path, not precision, but direction. The earliest lines were uncertain. They did not try to measure distance. They did not calculate scale. They did not worry about proportion. They simply suggested where something was. A curved mark for water, a jagged rise for stone, a long line stretching forward for a path walked more than once. The hand moved slowly, not to be exact, but to remember. A river was not drawn as it truly flowed. It was drawn as it was known. A mountain was not shaped by height. It was shaped by memory. The line did not copy the world. It translated it. There is something gentle about that translation. The early mapmaker was not concerned with accuracy. There were no rulers, no grids, no coordinates, only observation. The river bends here. The ground rises there. The sun disappears behind this ridge. Each line was a quiet agreement between the land and the mind. It said, "This is enough. Enough to find water again. Enough to avoid getting lost. Enough to return home." The earliest maps were not meant to impress. They were meant to guide. A simple mark pointing forward. A curve indicating a turn. A line ending at a place of safety. The space between lines was just as important. Empty areas did not mean nothing existed there. They meant nothing necessary had happened there. The map recorded what mattered, and what mattered was movement. A path repeated becomes a line. A line repeated becomes knowledge. Over time, the outlines grew steadier. The river was always drawn with the same curve. The mountain always rose in the same shape. Repetition brought confidence. Confidence brought clarity. Still, there was no obsession with perfection. If the river was slightly wider one day, it did not change the journey. If the mountain leaned a little differently, it still stood in the same place. Direction mattered more than detail. To know that water lay east was enough. To know that stone blocked the north was enough. To know that the safe path curved along the valley was enough. These first lines were quiet teachers. They taught the eye to reduce complexity. They taught the hand to choose what to include and what to leave behind. The world is vast. A map must be small, so the lines became simple. A river is a curve. A mountain is a rise. A forest is a cluster of marks. And a path is a thin line moving forward. Sometimes the first lines were hesitant. The finger would pause before committing to the sand. There is a small moment before every line when the hand decides where to begin. That moment is the beginning of mapping, a decision. Here, this is where the line starts. And once it starts, it moves. forward, across the surface, turning gently, ending when memory ends. The early map did not need to show what was unknown. Beyond the last line was silence, and silence was acceptable. There is something calming about a world that does not demand completeness. The first lines were incomplete. They did not try to enclose the earth. They did not draw borders. They drew roots. Roots are different from borders. Borders divide. Roots connect. The earliest maps were about connection, from river to shelter, from shelter to valley, from valley back to river. Each line was an act of trust. Trust that the land would remain. Trust that the memory was correct. Trust that the path could be walked again. Over time, the lines grew closer together. More features were added. Small marks for trees, dots for camps, crosses for crossings. But even then, simplicity remained. The early lines were not crowded. They left space for breathing, space for sky, space for the unknown to exist quietly beyond the edge. A map with only a few lines can still guide. Sometimes fewer lines guide better, because they do not overwhelm. They do not distract. They show only what is necessary. A river, a mountain, a path. Not precision, but direction. And direction in the early world was enough. Long pause. The first lines did not try to control the land. They tried to understand it. And understanding begins with a single mark moving steadily across an open surface. Slowly, quietly, forward. Parchment, cloth, rough paper. A map is texture. Before it became an image, it was a surface. Something that could be touched, folded, carried. The earliest maps drawn on Earth were temporary, but when the surface changed, the map changed with it. Stone had weight, sand had softness, but parchment had flexibility. It bent without breaking. It held ink. It traveled. The surface became portable, and when the surface could move, the map could move too. Parchment was not smooth like modern paper. It had fibers, irregularities, subtle lines running beneath the ink. Every mark followed the resistance of the material. A line drawn across parchment was never perfectly straight. It adjusted. It adapted. The mapmaker learned the texture before drawing the world upon it. Cloth offered something different. It folded easily. It rolled. It survived travel. A map on cloth felt softer in the hands. It did not crack when bent. It did not tear as easily in wind. But the weave of fabric shaped the lines. Ink followed threads. Contours shifted with the grain. The world bent slightly with the material beneath it. Rough paper came later, thicker than cloth, lighter than parchment. Its surface carried small imperfections, tiny ridges, faint shadows. Each line had to cross those imperfections. Each river and border moved across uneven ground. A map was never just an image. It was a conversation between ink and surface. The material mattered. A smooth sheet encouraged detail. A coarse sheet simplified it. On rough paper, fine lines blurred, so the map remained bold. Clear shapes, clear marks. The surface shaped the style. The hand adjusted to resistance. Pressure increased or softened. The ink spread or held. The world on the map was shaped by what lay beneath it. There is something quiet about texture. When you run your fingers across an old map, you do not feel mountains. You feel paper. You feel grain. You feel time. The edges grow softer with handling. Corners fold. Creases appear where the map has been opened again and again. A map records not only geography, but use. The more it is folded, the more the surface remembers. Texture becomes history. Even silence has texture. A blank portion of parchment is not empty. It carries tone, subtle variation. Light moves differently across it. A map is seen, but it is also felt. The weight of parchment in the hands, the stiffness of early paper, the gentle give of cloth. Before digital light, before glowing screens, maps had presence. They occupied space. They rustled when moved. They responded to touch. A map laid on a table changes the table. It adds another layer, another surface. The material grounds the image. It reminds the viewer that this is a representation, not the land itself, just marks resting on texture. The feel of a map slows the eye. You cannot scroll parchment. You must unfold it. You must smooth it flat. You must hold it steady. The surface demands attention, and attention slows time. A rough edge catches light differently. A crease interrupts a river. A fold may cut through a mountain drawn in ink. The world bends with the paper. There is something calming in that. The map is not perfect. It wears, it ages, it softens. The surface reminds us that even representation changes. A map is texture before it is direction. Before it guides, it rests in the hand. Before it explains, it exists. Parchment, cloth, rough paper, different materials, same quiet purpose: to hold lines, to hold memory, to hold the shape of a world long enough for someone to find their way. White spaces, nothing known, nothing marked, silence on paper. Not every part of a map was filled. Between the rivers and the mountains, between the paths and the borders, there were areas left untouched. Blank. The blank spaces were not mistakes. They were honest. They said, "We do not know." A white area on a map is not empty land. It is empty knowledge. It is the quiet admission that the world extends beyond memory. In early maps, these spaces were large, vast stretches of parchment with no ink at all. No symbols, no lines, no names, just surface. The eye would move across those pale regions and find nothing to hold on to. No direction, no certainty, only openness. There is something calming about that openness. The map does not pretend to explain everything. It leaves room for the unknown. The white space breathes. It gives rest between details. Rivers require blankness around them to be seen as rivers. Mountains need silence beside them to feel tall. Without empty space, everything would press too closely together. The blankness balances the ink. It softens the image. Sometimes the empty areas were labeled with gentle phrases. Unknown land, unexplored. But often they were left completely silent. No explanation, just paper. And that paper held possibility. The white space could become anything: a forest, a desert, a coastline. But until someone walked it, it remained untouched on the map. There's humility in a blank space. It accepts limits. It recognizes that knowledge is partial. The mapmaker pauses before filling the void. The hand hovers above the surface, then withdraws. Better to leave it empty than to draw what is not certain. In this way, the blank areas are acts of restraint. Restraint is quiet. Restraint is calm. The white space does not compete with the drawn lines. It does not demand attention. It allows the eye to rest. A map with wide, empty areas feels spacious. It does not overwhelm. It invites patience. Your gaze can wander across the blank surface without interruption, like looking at the sky between clouds. The unknown is not always frightening. On paper, it is gentle. It is simply absence. No sharp edges, no bold ink, just space. Over time, as exploration expanded, the blank areas grew smaller. More lines appeared. More names were written. The silence narrowed, but it never disappeared entirely. Even modern maps contain empty places. Oceans stretch wide. Deserts lie pale and open. High mountains remain thinly marked. The world still refuses to be completely filled. And perhaps that is necessary. If every space were labeled, if every inch were defined, there would be no room for imagination. The blankness reminds us that maps are not the world. They are interpretations, partial, limited, honest. A white space on a map is not failure. It is possibility. It is quiet potential waiting for footsteps. The paper holds that silence gently. It does not rush to replace it. It allows the unknown to remain unknown. And in that restraint, there is peace. White spaces, nothing marked. Silence on paper, a pause within the world. The world ended at the edge of the page. Beyond it, the unknown. The map limited fear. A sheet of parchment has boundaries. It begins somewhere. It ends somewhere. The land drawn upon it must obey those limits. Mountains cannot extend past the corner. Rivers cannot flow beyond the margin. At some point, the line simply stops. And where it stops, the world appears to stop with it. There is something quiet about that ending. A coastline reaches the edge. A road narrows into nothing. A border fades into blank space. The page holds only so much. In early maps, the edges were more than physical limits. They were psychological ones. If the known land fit within the sheet, then the unknown lay outside it, outside the paper, outside the drawing, outside the mind. This gave comfort. Fear often grows in open space, but when the world is framed, it feels contained. The edge of the page becomes a wall, a boundary between certainty and mystery. Inside the frame, there are rivers with names, mountains with shape, paths that lead somewhere. Outside the frame, there is silence. The early mapmaker did not try to draw what could not be seen. Instead, the page offered protection. It said, "This is what we know." And it stopped there. The stopping point mattered. It was deliberate. A thin border sometimes marked the margin, a decorative frame, an ornamental line. It separated the drawn world from the empty space beyond. The frame was not only artistic, it was reassurance. Within these lines, the world is understandable. Beyond them, it is not our concern. In some maps, the unknown was hinted at with symbols, waves, cloud shapes, occasional creatures, not to frighten, but to acknowledge distance. Yet even those symbols respected the boundary. They hovered near the edge. They did not invade the center. The heart of the map remained calm, clear, structured, defined. Edges have power. They organize what lies inside. They give shape to chaos. Without edges, a map would feel endless, and endlessness can be overwhelming. But with an edge, the eye knows where to stop. The hand knows where the paper ends. The mind understands its limits. There is humility in that limit. The map does not claim infinity. It claims only a portion, a region, a coastline, a continent, enough to hold in sight, enough to comprehend. The edge of the world on paper did not mean the earth ended. It meant knowledge ended. And that difference matters. To draw an edge is to admit boundaries, to admit that fear need not stretch forever. It can be contained, held within margins. The page may be small, but its frame offers stability. You can hold it, you can fold it, you can place it in a drawer. And when the map is folded closed, the world it contains rests quietly within it. The unknown remains outside, out of sight. The edges of the world were not declarations of certainty. They were invitations to pause, to accept what is known, to accept what is not, and to let the paper draw the line between the two. The world ended at the edge of the page. Beyond it, the unknown, and within that frame, fear felt smaller. A map does not work alone. A needle, north, a quiet turning. The map lies open, still, silent, lines resting on paper. But without direction, the lines hesitate. They show rivers, they show mountains, they show paths, yet they do not tell you where you stand. That is where the compass waits, small, circular, held in the hand. Its needle does not rush. It trembles slightly, then settles, always toward the same invisible point. North. The compass does not speak. It does not draw. It does not describe the land. It only aligns. There is something calming about that alignment. No matter how uncertain the terrain, no matter how rough the weather, the needle turns gently and finds its direction. A map without a compass is a memory. A compass without a map is a possibility. Together, they become guidance. The map spreads outward, wide, complex, full of curves and intersections. The compass remains small, simple, one line, one purpose. The needle rests lightly on its axis. It floats. It resists sudden movement. When disturbed, it circles slowly, then returns to its quiet certainty. There is no drama in its motion, only consistency. A map may show north with a small arrow in the corner, but the compass feels it. It responds to something unseen, a pull beneath the surface of the earth, invisible, constant. The map depends on that constancy. Without it, the lines lose orientation. A river might run in any direction. A mountain range could tilt without meaning. But with north, everything aligns. The world gains structure. The compass does not care about detail. It does not notice rivers. It does not trace borders. It does not measure distance. It simply turns, always toward the same point. There is reassurance in that simplicity. When the sky clouds over, when landmarks disappear, the needle still moves quietly, unconcerned, steady. Beside the open map, the compass is patient. It waits for the hand to check it. It waits for the slight adjustment of angle. It waits to confirm direction. Together, they create balance. The map spreads across the table. The compass rests near its edge. Paper and metal, surface and motion. One holds space, the other holds orientation. The compass beside the map reminds us that direction is invisible. It cannot be seen on the page. It must be sensed. And once sensed, the map makes sense. The needle, north. A quiet turning. No sound, no display. Just a subtle movement aligning the world with something constant. A map does not work alone. And the compass, small and steady, completes the silence. 7 folds. A map bends. Lines break. The world fractures into parts. A map is rarely left flat for long. It is opened, studied, closed again. Hands press along its surface. Fingers find the edges. And then slowly the paper gives. A fold appears. At first, it is only a soft crease. A gentle line across a river. Across a mountain range. Across a road drawn carefully in ink. The fold does not ask permission. It passes through everything. Through borders, through coastlines, through names written in steady script. The world, so carefully arranged, must now bend. There is something quiet in that bending. The map does not resist. It yields. Paper is flexible. It accepts pressure. It remembers it. Once folded, it will never be entirely smooth again. Even when opened flat, a faint line remains, a subtle interruption across the surface of the earth. When a map folds, the drawn world is divided, not erased, not destroyed, simply separated. A river may disappear at the crease, only to reappear on the other side. A road may break in two. A forest may be cut cleanly by the edge of paper pressing into itself. The fold creates temporary absence. The eye must adjust. To follow a path across a crease is to pause, to lift the paper slightly, to smooth it open, to reconnect what was divided. In that small act, the map becomes more than image. It becomes object. It has thickness, weight, corners that meet and overlap. A map folded into sections is easier to carry. It fits into a pocket. It rests in a bag. It travels. But travel requires compression. The vastness of the land must be reduced, pressed together, layered upon itself. A continent may fold into a rectangle. An entire coastline may collapse into a stack of creases. The world becomes smaller not through shrinking, but through bending. There is something intimate about a folded map. It is not displayed. It is kept, tucked away, its lines hidden inside layers. Only a small portion visible at first glance. To see the rest, you must unfold it, carefully, section by section. Each movement reveals more. Each layer opens into space. The act of unfolding is slow. It requires patience. You cannot rush it. If you pull too quickly, the paper may tear. If you press too hard, the crease deepens. So the hands move gently, guided by the lines already formed. The folds often follow a pattern, straight, measured, dividing the map into panels, a grid imposed on the land. Even the folding becomes a kind of mapping. The surface organized into smaller, manageable sections. A river may live entirely within one panel. A mountain range may stretch across two. The fold interrupts, but it also structures. When the map is closed, the outside shows nothing of its detail. Perhaps only a plain cover, perhaps only blank paper. Inside, an entire geography waits, quiet, compressed, folded into itself. There is a gentle irony here. A map is meant to spread outward, to display, to clarify. Yet it spends much of its life folded, hidden, resting in darkness between uses. The creases deepen with time. They soften at the edges. Repeated opening and closing creates wear. The ink near the folds may fade. The paper thins. Sometimes a small tear begins at the center of a crease, a fragile point where the world has bent too often. Tape may appear, a repair, a careful attempt to hold the map together. The tape becomes part of the geography, a translucent patch across a valley, a faint gloss over a border. Even damage becomes memory. The fold does not destroy the world on paper. It rearranges how it is accessed. When folded, you see only fragments, a single town, a short stretch of road. The rest remains concealed beneath layers. This fragmentation changes perception. The world feels sectional, divided into moments, each panel a piece of a larger whole. To understand the full map, you must hold multiple sections in mind at once. You must imagine continuity across creases, across breaks in the line. The fold teaches patience. It slows interpretation. It reminds the reader that the world cannot always be grasped in a single glance. There is something human about folding. We fold letters. We fold clothing. We fold ourselves inward in cold. To fold is to conserve space, to prepare for movement. The folded map travels more easily. It becomes companion. It fits against the body, carried close. Sometimes the fold lines become familiar. The hands know where to press, to open to a specific region. They remember the sequence, left, down, across. The map responds, revealing the desired portion of the world. In this way, the fold becomes functional. It organizes knowledge into accessible layers. Yet every fold carries a quiet cost. The smoothness is never fully restored. The paper remembers pressure. Memory in paper is subtle. A faint ridge, a slight change in color, a texture different from the rest. Over time, the fold may become the most handled part of the map, the center of attention, the place where the hand naturally rests. The world, broken by creases, is not diminished. It is transformed. The mountains still rise. The rivers still curve. The borders still separate regions. But now they are experienced in sections. The mind learns to piece them together, to reconstruct continuity across interruptions. A fold is a pause in the line, a brief silence. The river disappears into the crease, then emerges, changed only by the interruption. In that interruption, there is a reminder. The map is not the land. The land does not fold. The land does not crease. Only the representation bends. Only the surface breaks into parts. There is something calming in that knowledge. The world itself remains continuous, even if the paper is not. When the map is fully opened, laid flat upon a table, the creases form a network, a grid overlaying geography. Light catches those ridges differently. Shadows fall into them. They create their own topography, raised lines crossing valleys, subtle elevations through plains. The folds become a second landscape, invisible at first glance, yet always present. A map folded and unfolded many times feels softer, more lived in. Its corners may round, its edges may fray. It carries the imprint of use. The world on its surface is no longer abstract. It has been touched, handled, consulted. The fold, then, is not merely damage. It is evidence of reliance, evidence that the map mattered, that it guided, that it was opened under uncertain skies, that it was closed again when direction was found. To fold a map is to trust it enough to carry it forward, to bend it, to reshape it, and to know that when opened again, the world will still be there. A map bends, lines break, the world fractures into parts, but when unfolded, the pieces return to one another, quietly, patiently, waiting to be read again, smaller in size, closer to the body, personal navigation. A large map spreads across a table. It requires space. It asks for stillness. But a small map can travel. It folds tighter. It fits within a pocket. It rests against fabric. It moves with the body. When a map becomes small, the world becomes intimate, no longer distant on a desk, no longer observed from above. Now it is carried, pressed gently against the chest, warmed by proximity. The reduction in size changes perception. Large maps suggest overview. They show regions, continents, borders stretching across broad surfaces. But a map made for the pocket shows something else. A neighborhood, a district, a single route from one place to another. The scale narrows, the focus sharpens, detail increases. Streets are thinner lines, landmarks are closer together. The eye moves carefully across the small surface. There is less empty space, more instruction, more specificity. A pocket map does not attempt to explain the world. It explains where you are and where you might go next. Carrying a map close to the body changes its meaning. It becomes companion, not decoration, not archive, but tool. A folded square of paper rests quietly in a pocket, unseen, waiting. The hand reaches for it when uncertainty appears. The fingers unfold it in small sections, careful movements. The map opens only as much as necessary, just enough to reveal the next turn. The act is discreet, a glance downward, a brief pause, then forward again. Personal navigation is quiet. It does not announce itself. It is a private dialogue between the map and the traveler. The map in the pocket is creased more tightly. Its folds are compact. They form neat rectangles. Each panel contains a fragment of the city, a crossing, a park, a station marked with a small symbol. Because of its size, every line must be deliberate. There is no room for excess. The typography is smaller. The ink is finer. The river curves more precisely through the limited space. A pocket map demands attention. You cannot see everything at once. You must bring it closer to your eyes. You must focus. In this closeness, the world feels immediate, not abstract, not distant. The map rests in the hand. The thumb anchors one corner. The other hand smooths the crease. The surface reflects faint light, perhaps sunlight, perhaps streetlight at night. The map becomes an extension of movement. You walk, you pause, you unfold, you continue. The distance between representation and reality grows smaller. A street on the page matches the street beneath your feet. The alignment is precise. The map does not float above the land. It mirrors it closely. There's something reassuring about having direction so near. In a pocket, the map is silent. It does not glow. It does not vibrate. It waits. Its presence alone is enough. You know it is there. That knowledge reduces uncertainty. The world feels less overwhelming when folded neatly beside you. A map in the pocket is different from a map on a wall. The wall map is display. It is static. The pocket map is dynamic. It travels through weather, through rain, through wind. Its edges may soften from moisture. Its corners may bend from repeated handling. It carries signs of use. Over time, certain sections grow thinner. Frequently consulted streets become slightly worn. The crease at a central intersection deepens. The map records patterns of movement. It reveals where uncertainty often arises. In this way, the map becomes personal. Two people may carry identical maps, yet they will not wear them in the same way. One may crease it at the train station. Another may fold it repeatedly at the river crossing. The marks of use reflect different journeys. The pocket map is humble. It does not claim authority over vast lands. It offers guidance for immediate surroundings. Turn left here. Continue straight. Cross at this bridge. Small instructions for specific moments. The reduction in size brings the world within reach. What once required a table now fits within a hand. The physical closeness creates emotional closeness. The map becomes familiar, its paper texture known, its fold pattern memorized. Even without opening it, you may recall the layout. The main road runs north to south. The park lies to the east. The station is near the river bend. The pocket map strengthens memory. Repeated consultation turns lines into knowledge. Eventually, the map is opened less often. Confidence grows. The traveler moves without checking, yet the map remains in the pocket. A quiet reassurance, a silent backup. Its presence is subtle, a thin square pressing gently against fabric, against the body. In colder weather, it warms slightly from contact. The paper adjusts to the curve of movement. The map bends with each step. It adapts to the rhythm of walking. In this intimacy, navigation becomes personal, no longer a grand view from above, but a dialogue between self and space. Where am I now? Which direction next? The pocket map answers quietly, not through sound, not through light, but through ink and fold. There is something calming about unfolding a small map in a quiet street. No urgency, no blinking signals, just lines, just shapes, just orientation. The map does not judge hesitation. It does not hurry. It remains steady in the hand. Its reduced size reminds us that we need only a small portion of the world at a time. We do not need the entire continent. We need the next corner, the next crossing, the next landmark. A map in the pocket is a modest companion. It does not overwhelm. It simplifies. It narrows attention to what matters now. Smaller in size, closer to the body, personal navigation. The vast world folded into a square, carried quietly, opened gently, consulted softly, and returned to the pocket until needed again. The screen replaces paper. Lines begin to glow. The route builds itself. The map no longer stays silent. There was a time when a map rested in the hand. It folded, it creased, it softened with use. Now the surface is smooth, glass instead of fiber, light instead of ink. The map no longer absorbs the world. It emits it. A digital map does not wait to be unfolded. It is already open, contained within a screen, a surface that shines softly even in darkness. The lines are sharper now, cleaner, precise. A river glows faintly blue. Roads shine in pale threads of light. Borders appear and disappear with a touch. The material has changed, and with it, the experience of navigation. A paper map required patience. You studied it. You turned it slowly. You aligned it with the horizon. A digital map aligns itself. It rotates to match direction. North is no longer fixed at the top. The world turns with you. This small shift is quiet, yet profound. The map responds. It follows movement. It senses position. Where once the traveler adjusted to the map, now the map adjusts to the traveler. The screen glows steadily. Even in night, even under dim light, the map remains visible. It does not fade. It does not crease. It does not tear at the fold. Its surface is uninterrupted, smooth, unbroken by physical limits. Zoom replaces unfolding. 2 fingers expand the view. The city widens. Roads multiply, then shrink again with a gentle motion. The scale is fluid. There is no fixed size. The world can be vast or narrow within seconds. A digital map is layered. Traffic appears in red lines. Transit routes glow in color. Icons mark cafes, stations, hospitals. Information stacks upon information. The map becomes dynamic. It updates, it refreshes, it recalculates. The route is no longer traced by hand. It is generated. A thin line appears, blue, direct, from one point to another. Turn-by-turn instructions accompany it. The path is not guessed. It is computed. The silence of paper gives way to quiet prompts, a soft voice, a gentle vibration, an arrow turning on the screen. The map speaks now, not loudly, but clearly. It announces distance. It predicts arrival time. It warns of delay. This new voice changes navigation. The traveler no longer interprets. The map instructs. Follow this line. Turn here. Continue straight. Recalculating. There is efficiency in this process. The uncertainty shrinks. The need to pause and unfold disappears. The screen remains upright, held in the hand, or resting on a dashboard. Light replaces texture. The tactile quality of paper gives way to smooth glass. The finger no longer traces ink. It taps, it swipes, it scrolls. The world responds instantly. There is no waiting for creases to flatten, no searching for the correct panel. Everything appears at once. Yet something else changes quietly. A paper map required memory. You studied it. You remembered intersections. You anticipated turns. A digital map reduces that burden. It remembers for you. It adjusts automatically. If you deviate, the line shifts. A new path forms. The map forgives mistakes without hesitation. The glow of the screen creates its own atmosphere. At night, the digital map becomes a source of light. The route floats against dark surroundings. The city becomes abstract. Blocks simplify. Details fade. Only the path remains bright. The world is reduced to direction. The screen isolates the traveler within a narrow beam of guidance. Outside that beam, the city may remain complex, but inside it, the journey feels contained. The digital map is never folded. It never hides within layers. Instead, it hides within a device, compact, contained in circuits and memory. An entire globe reduced to data. The physical weight disappears. No paper to carry, no corners to bend. The map becomes invisible until summoned, and when summoned, it appears instantly. There is power in that immediacy, but also dependence. The digital map requires energy, battery, signal, connection. Without power, the screen darkens, the lines vanish, the path dissolves. In that moment, silence returns. The map becomes dormant. Unlike paper, it cannot exist without support. Yet when active, it feels alive. The route pulses softly. The arrow moves across the grid. The position shifts in real time. The traveler watches themselves advance through representation. The map becomes mirror. It reflects movement as it happens. The distinction between map and journey narrows further. The digital map expands beyond geography. It suggests restaurants. It marks reviews. It estimates a distance in minutes, not miles. Time overlays space. The journey is measured in duration, not merely direction. Arrival becomes a number. 15 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes remaining. The map counts down. This countdown changes perception. Distance feels shorter when reduced to minutes. The world compresses into time. Yet despite its complexity, the digital map remains a map. It still simplifies the land. It still converts reality into lines. It still reduces vastness into a screen-size frame. The essential purpose has not changed. Only the medium. The screen replaces paper. Lines glow instead of resting quietly in ink. The path draws itself instead of being traced by memory. The map no longer waits silently in a pocket. It resides in a device, always near, always ready. The digital map does not crease. It does not tear. It does not fade with handling, but it can disappear with a drained battery. It is both durable and fragile, persistent and temporary. It updates constantly. It never becomes outdated in the same way as paper. Road closures adjust. New streets appear. Traffic shifts in real time. The map is never finished. It evolves, quietly, continuously. The glow of the screen in darkness marks a shift in navigation. Where once the traveler relied on static lines, now they follow moving light. The map no longer remains still. It moves with you. It speaks to you. It recalculates for you. It guides actively. A digital map hums with subtle activity, not loudly, but constantly. Data flows beneath the surface. Coordinates update. Routes adjust. Behind the simple glowing line is invisible calculation. Yet to the traveler, it appears effortless. A blue path, a small arrow, a destination marked clearly. The experience feels simple, even if the process beneath it is complex. The digital map has gained a voice, not emotional, not expressive, but instructive. It tells you where to turn. It alerts you when you arrive. It announces rerouting without hesitation. The map no longer asks to be interpreted. It delivers guidance directly. In this way, the map has changed character, from quiet companion to active assistant. Yet at its core, it still draws lines, still connects points, still reduces space into understanding. The screen replaces paper. The lines glow. The path builds itself. The map no longer remains silent. It whispers directions through light. It follows movement with precision. It adapts. And when the screen goes dark, for a moment, it becomes quiet again. The sheet closes. The screen goes dark. The world remains. There is always a moment at the end, after the final turn, after the last intersection, after the destination has been reached. The map is no longer needed. The paper is brought together gently. Edges meet. Panels align along familiar creases. The vast surface collapses into something small. The river disappears into a fold. The mountains press against one another. Cities stack quietly in layers of paper. The world that was open is now contained. The map rests in the hand, smaller, quieter, finished for now. If the map is digital, the gesture is different. A finger presses the side of a device. The glow fades. Lines vanish. The path dissolves into black glass. The screen reflects only the room. In both cases, the guidance retreats. The representation withdraws. And what remains is the world itself. The street beneath your feet does not fold. The buildings do not close. The river does not dim. The mountains do not compress into panels. The land continues without interruption. There's something grounding in that realization. The map was never the terrain. It was only a translation, a surface shaped to help the mind understand space. When the map closes, nothing outside changes. The wind continues. The light shifts. The ground holds steady. For a while, the map has been central, studied, consulted, trusted. Now it becomes secondary again. Paper returned to pocket. Device returned to table. The attention shifts away from lines and back to surroundings. There is a soft relief in that shift. Navigation gives way to presence. The eyes lift from symbols to buildings, to trees, to sky. A map can only suggest the world. It cannot replace it. When folded, it acknowledges that limit. The act of closing a map is deliberate. It signals completion, not finality, but pause. For now, the route has served its purpose. The lines have done their work. The world stands on its own again. There is no disappointment in this ending, only quiet acceptance. The map does not resent being folded. It was made for this rhythm. Open, guide, close, wait. A paper map rests in darkness until the next unfolding. Its creases remember previous journeys. Its surface holds faint traces of use, but it remains patient. It does not call out. It does not insist on attention. A digital map too returns to stillness when the screen darkens. Data remains within the device, but without light, it is invisible, silent, dormant. Both forms share this quality. They wait. Maps have never moved. Not truly. They do not travel on their own. They do not step forward. They do not cross rivers. They do not climb hills. They lie still. Even when carried, they are passive. The movement belongs to the traveler. The map only reflects it. This distinction is easy to forget while following a route. The glowing line feels active. The instructions feel immediate. But when everything goes dark, the illusion fades. The map did not lead you. You walked, you turned, you arrived. The map simply waited to be consulted. It offered possibility. It did not enforce it. There is comfort in that restraint. A map does not control the journey. It supports it. When folded or switched off, it returns to neutrality. An object, a tool, nothing more. The world outside remains continuous. The road stretches beyond the edge of paper, beyond the boundaries of screen, beyond the limits of representation. Maps frame experience, but they do not contain it. When the sheet closes, the frame dissolves. The land expands again in full scale, unreduced, uncompressed, free of symbols. The long pause after folding is not empty, it is spacious. A return to unmediated space. The traveler stands without reference lines, without highlighted routes. Only the environment remains. And in that environment, orientation becomes internal. The memory of the path persists. The sense of direction lingers quietly. The map is no longer visible, yet its work continues within the mind. Perhaps that is its final purpose, to transfer understanding from surface to memory, so that eventually the map is not needed at all. It can rest, folded, dark, waiting, because a map has never moved. It has never walked beside the traveler. It has never crossed a border. It has only existed, ready, patient, still. The sheet closes. The screen goes dark. The world remains. Long pause. The map never moved. It simply waited.